these are not part of my favourites collection, but you might recognise some of the books. I'm currently reading, I haven't actually picked it up in a while, but Wuthering Heights, The Fifth Wave, A Court of Silver Flames, and The Priory of the Orange Tree. I've read these three. I'm currently like a third through Wuthering Heights, but I thought I might have some books in the background as well for you guys to get the vibe, but let's get into the books. Okay, so the first book I have with me today is Pride and Prejudice. I do want to put a disclaimer here that I forgot what I was gonna. These books are not in order of like most to least favorite or least to most favorite. I put the books in an order where it like is randomized between books that you might be familiar with, books that you might not know. Just so all the books that you do know aren't first, and all the books that you don't know are last. I know I felt like that might be a little bit more suitable for the audience. But yeah, so Pride and Prejudice. My plan is to read the blurb and then we can talk about the book. So, Pride and Prejudice. The blurb reads, with its light and bright and sparkling dialogue, its romantic denouncement, and its lively heroine, Pride and Prejudice is Jane Austen's most benevolently popular novel, the love story of Elizabeth Bennet and Frizz William Darcy, who misjudge, then challenge and change each other. It is also a novel about the search for happiness and self-knowledge in a world of strict social rules, where a woman must marry well to survive. Pride and Prejudice. This is part of my favorites list. So if you aren't familiar with Pride and Prejudice, there is also different movie adaptations. That are based on this book by Jane Austen. So this book is about a woman named Elizabeth Bennet and her journey growing up and becoming of age as a woman in a small town. I don't even know, I actually can't remember where they live. I believe it might be even like London or something. I don't know. I'm not, to be honest. I have no idea. But a lot of people like to like read these books to get into like the historical stuff and like understand what it's like being a woman of that time and stuff like that. I consider this book to be more of like a really cozy novel because you kind of follow Elizabeth as she like with her friends and with her family, and like you see those sort of dynamics play out. And like seeing all that play out, it's actually really comforting, I think. I love the aspect of reading because it puts yourself in like another person's shoes for a while, and you're able to live through their lens of life. And Elizabeth is definitely a character that I think it's like really enjoyable to live through the lens of. She is at like a down party, at a party where everyone's there, and Mr. Darcy shows up, and everyone dislikes him because they think that he's very prideful and full of himself. And as as you sort of see the dynamics of their relationship play out, it's interesting to see how people put on such like a certain face, and it hides like their character underneath and like their values and even like the genuineness and authenticity of who they are. And I really like how she comes to know Mr. Darcy as Mr. Darcy and not as this character that everyone hates around her. And it's really interesting. A little bit of a spoiler, but I find it quite ironic, like iconic. I don't know, something in that terminology, but I find it quite funny, like that, like he proposes to her and is like, oh, even though you're not good enough for me, like I want to be with you, and then just like, what the heck, that's not a proposal. And then she ends up like realizing after some time, like after realizing some stuff that Mr. Darcy's done, and like that he isn't this man that she thought he was, and then ends up like falling in love with him. And then he's like, even after that rejection, he's like, I still love you anyway, because I love you, not because, and that rejection doesn't change that. I don't know, there's something about it that just kind of like, it's like kind of like pure love, and I love that. And so this is like a comforting book to me. I finished it like 4 months ago, and I got it like 3 years ago. That's why it's kind of like worn down quite a bit. Like, even look over here, it's because I got it 3 years ago and I was like 16 when I first tried to read this, and like, the writing style, I could not grasp it at all. I couldn't grasp it. It was really hard for me to sort of like translate in my mind, and so I stopped reading it after maybe 7 chapters. I'm not sure, like I got maybe between 7 to like 12 chapters in, because I'm like, I'll just come back to it later. And then I tried maybe at the end of that year that I started reading it, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't get past like the 4th chapter, and then I read it 5 months ago and I finished it 4 months ago, and oh my goodness, it is so, I love it. It's that book that is just like, you're living life and it's chill, and you get a pop of colour every now and again, pop of fun, humour. Like, this book is quite humorous as well. But yeah, there's a fly. And a lot of people also read this for like, I don't know, like as feminist literature. I don't really consider myself to be a feminist in the way modern times labels feminists, but I do think that this book was empowering for me. I know. Highly recommend. I love this book. Okay, this is a pretty well-known book. Agatha, A Court of Thorns and Roses. This book is by Sarah J. Maas. I actually don't know how you pronounce her last name. People do it differently all over the internet. But the blurb reads, Feyre is a huntress. The skin of a wolf would bring enough gold to feed her sisters for a month, but the life of a magical creature comes at a steep price, and Feyre has just killed the wrong wolf. Taken prisoner by a high Fey lord, Feyre learns that her masked captor is hiding even more than his piercing gaze suggests. But as Feyre's feelings for Tamlin begin to burn through every warning she's heard about his kind, a shadow is falling across the land, and if Feyre cannot fight it, she will lose everything. So this is on my favourites list because it was one of the first fantasy series that I read, and it had me like fall in love with fantasy. I read this when I was like 16, I think, and I think also at a certain age, when you reread it, it brings you back to like your past self. It brings you back to like your past self. And I think that's kind of comforting and cool. But I haven't read this in a bit, but the cover actually shows up orange on camera, but it's like, it's more of like a red, like I would say a coral red, but it's red, not orange. I think that this is one of those books that you like, you love the first, like, oh sorry, one of these series. It's one of these series where you like, you fall in love with the first book, and then you fall in love more each book that you read through. So then you end up looking back on the first book and you're like, the first book, like, it was good at the time, but like it gets better. Like the writing gets better, the story gets better as you progress through the series. And I think that that's actually quite nice. So if you aren't familiar with Akatar, or this book in particular, is about a girl called Feyre, and she is a human girl who is poor and has to look after her family in a small town, and she does something that gets her in trouble with a high fae. She does something that gets her in trouble with a high fae lord, and she ends up getting captured and taken prisoner in the land of Fae, in the court of that particular High Lord, and you end up she ends up living life there as a human, and some stuff happens, some pretty interesting stuff happens, and then you meet different people, different creatures as Feyre, and you end up realizing that there's more to the magical land of the Fae than you think there is. I think that that's what's actually quite cool about Sarah's books, is that she kind of sets up this world for you in like the first book, and then as you progress you realise that the world, like ours, is far more, like there's so much more depth to it, and than you initially believe there is. And I think that's pretty cool. I love this story. There is also another book from Sarah J. Maas that I have in this video, but I love the story. I would say that this book in particular isn't like my favourite in the series, but this is one of my favourite series, and that's why it's kind of like part of the favourite books collection. I'm sorry if the volume's going up and down, I'm trying to adjust the gain with the volume. Okay. The third book is Me Before You, and I actually realised before that this certain print of the book was actually printed out before the movie came out, because it says on the sticker that does not actually come off, soon to be a major motion picture. So I thought that was pretty interesting, because I got this when I was thrift shopping. The blurb says, Lou Clark knows lots of things. She knows how many footsteps there are between the bus stop and home. She knows she likes working in the buttered bun tea shop. She knows she might not love her boyfriend, Patrick. What Lou doesn't know is she's about to lose her job, or that knowing what's coming is what keeps her sane. Will Trainer knows his motorcycle accident took away his desire to live. He knows everything feels very small and rather joyless now, and he knows exactly how he's going to put a stop to that. What Will doesn't know is that Lou is about to burst into his world in a riot of colour, and neither of them knows they're going to change the other for all time. So, I watched the movie way before I read this book, but I went thrift shopping and I saw it and I'm like, oh, it's based on a book. That's interesting. I'm going to pick it up and read it. And boy, did I enjoy reading this. The book has so much more detail than the movie, which of course you would expect. But there's actually, if you're not familiar with the movie is about a woman named Lou Clark, and she works in I'd say like a cake shop or like a cafe, and she ends up getting let go, and she has to find another job, and she ends up getting a job as a carer, and the story is about her caring for this man, and it's a beautiful, wholesome, heartbreaking, wonderful, beautifully written story. But in the movie's great. I love the movie. I think that they took the story and made a beautiful adaptation of it. But not what a lot of people actually don't know is that Lou's character went through quite a traumatic experience when she was a young adult, and she actually has like a tattoo that is associated with that healing journey from that certain traumatic experience. And I think it's quite interesting that they chose not to put it in the movie. It makes sense why, but I feel like that would have added a lot to her character, because I do feel like her character was a little bit like surface level in the movie. But there's like a whole background to Lou's character in the book, and you get like a whole lot more depth with her personality and her as a person, because it's just so wonderful. But this is on my favourites list because not only did I love the story, and I love the fact that it gave me so much more than the movie, but despite the fact that I knew what was going to happen at the end of the book, I still sobbed, and I love that. But after reading the book, I then realised that this is actually part of a trilogy, and there were actually other books written after this, and so this whole book is the only movie that's out, but there were actually 2 other books starting right after this one finishes pretty much, and so I'm like, what the heck? And so there's actually like a whole other story and like a whole other life that you end up living as Lou, and her story is just, oh my goodness, I love it so much. And there's like all these new characters introduced, and they're like, you cannot help but like fall in love with them, and it's so good. I actually really want to reread this series again soon. But if you haven't already read like the trilogy, I highly encourage you to read it, because the movie's good, but the books are so much better, so much better, so much better. But also do read the trigger warnings before reading it. It does have a bit of heavy topics in there, but it's still a beautiful story. The 4th book, I don't think very many people will know this, but this is Making Your Mind Up by Jill Mansell. I'm gonna say Mansell. I read this when I was like 14, and I also found this when I was 13. and she never imagined her children doing the same when she met Tyler Clean. He isn't wildly unsuitable either, he's a catch, but as far as Nat and Ruby are concerned, he is the devil incarnate. What's a girl to do? Is she only allowed to associate with men who meet with their approval? And doesn't she already have enough to worry about? What with errand ex-husband Mario up to his old tricks, beloved boss Freddy determined to catch up with old friends before life catches up with him, and best friend Cassandra brazenly propositioning strangers in shops. Everyone else needs sorting out. Well, that's fine. It's what Lottie's best at, until the day she discovers that an attack of their cups can have the power just possibly to change your life. This is one of my favorite. I'll just move a little bit. This is one of my favorite books because I did read this when I was 14, but I also read this book when I was like hopelessly in love with this boy, and this book, Making Your Mind Up, helped me get over this boy. And so I think it has a very special place in my heart, because I think when you're a young girl and you're still trying to grasp the concept of love and what love means to you, this book put me through different relationships, and I read through the different perspectives of those relationships, and it helped me realise what I want love to look like. And I'm a hopeless romantic who wouldn't love reading about someone else's love life, but I think this was a really funny book, and it's well written. I think, from what I can remember, I was 14 when I read this, so it could be horribly written, but I remember reading the story and it was just so wholesome. So from what I can remember, this book is about a woman named Lottie, and you basically live her life as a 30-year-old, but she ends up meeting some people, and she, in the process, then has to make her mind up about who she's going to end up being with, and obviously her other relationships impact that decision. And I think it's interesting to see how her children, her friends, and even her peers and her co-workers affect that. But as far as I can remember, you also read about Mario, Freddy, and Cassandra's life, her ex-husband, her boss, and her best friend, and you end up reading about their own relationships and love life. And yeah, it's really interesting to see them all play out in the way that they do. And I think it gives a good concept of the fact that everyone's idea of love is different, and everyone's way of receiving love is also different, which was quite comforting to read. So that's why I love this book. And I think that the front kind of sums it up pretty well. It says, "It's not always you who gets to choose when you're making your mind up." So yeah, and even the cover is really it's just very playful and colourful, and I think that it suits the story quite well. But yeah, I do have other books by Jill Mansell, but I haven't really read them. I got them again when I was thrifting, so I was purposefully looking for them and I got them, but I haven't read them yet. Okay, so before I I'm showing this book is because it's one of my favourite books, because it personally had a positive impact on me, and it changed me for the better, I believe, and so that's why it's one of my favourites list. However, I am putting a disclaimer here now. If you are choosing for some reason to read this book based on my showing it, please look into what you're getting yourself into, read all the trigger warnings, and I would even say read other people's reviews of the book. I'll go into a little bit as to why it's maybe potentially controversial. You might even be familiar with the book yourself and go, why the heck is that your favourite book? But everyone has their own selective likes and dislikes. But I just wanted to put that out there, that I don't want anyone to read the book and then be badly hurt by what they've read, because it is graphic and it is traumatizing to read for a lot of people, and with the topics and the way that they're written, I would expect that to happen for some people. So you really want to be in a healthy emotional and mental state to read this book, and even then, if you are in a good mental state, it can still actually be quite a painful thing to read. So yeah, I'm just putting a disclaimer there in advance, because I think that is the most appropriate thing going forward when bringing up this book. Okay, I moved again. The book that is on my favourites list is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I might have butchered her name, I'm sorry if I did. So I'm gonna read the blurb. The blurb, I don't think it really has anything that's gonna trigger anybody. That's why I'm gonna read it out loud. It just gives a good summary of what the book's sort of about and who it follows. So I'm gonna read it out loud, but if you think it might potentially bring up some negative feelings, which I don't think it will, you're more than welcome to just skip ahead. Four graduates move to New York, broke, adrift, and buoyed only by their friendship and ambition. There is kind, handsome actor William, the sardonic painter JB, Malcolm, a frustrated architect, and the brilliant yet enigmatic Jude, who serves as their centre of gravity. Over many decades, their complex relationships come to be defined by their respective addictions, successes, and traumas. In this immensely powerful novel of love and the limits of human endurance. So, I am going to briefly describe what the novel is about without mentioning any of the themes, the triggering themes mentioned. So this book follows four young men in New York, and it's sort of almost written like a biography, almost. I won't say it is a biography, but it's written in the sort of sense that you legitimately are following these men over, I think, even 40 years of their life, and you just understand what it's like living these men's lives as they some pursue a career that they're passionate about, others explore their newfound family, and there's a lot of trauma. I wouldn't say healing, but the attempt to heal from your trauma and the devastating effects of what trauma can bring. As much as this book has a lot of really beautiful, lovely themes, there is significantly more painful things in this book. I read this book when I was 17, and at that point in time I actually hadn't read anything about the book, because I wasn't really informed of the fact that this book had even by the cover, I wasn't really informed that the book had a lot of triggering themes, and I was was in a very lucky position to not have been traumatized by this book. But this book is quite controversial because a lot of people think that either the themes weren't written about respectfully. Hanya didn't actually write about the themes in this book with accuracy and regard to what the reality of it would look like. And the fact that she even wrote about it at all in such a graphic manner. Personally, for me, this book actually convinced me that I wanted to be a counsellor and help people, because in reading this I was put in the shoes of not only a man, but men going through so many different stages of life and of healing and of pain, and I would never be able to feel that, and I would never really be able to understand it. But for this brief moment of me reading the book, I was able to somewhat even feel what they were feeling, and it gave me a lot of empathy and compassion. And this book, in every word, every sentence, every page, every minute of me reading it, I sobbed. There is really nothing necessarily completely there aren't a lot of good things in this book in particular. However, I think that this touched me in ways that I can't imagine, in such a beautiful way. And I was actually talking to someone close to me at the time when I was reading this book, and I was telling them about what was happening to particular characters at that time, and I was in the process really hurt by the fact, because I do believe that there's a lot of realness and rawness about the way that the themes in this book were written and experienced. And I was talking with a certain person about it, and I ended up finding out that someone who I'm very close to experienced almost the exact same things that a particular person experienced in this book, and it broke me in more ways than I could ever imagine. And being in that person's shoes, not even in that person's shoes, but just even knowing what it was like for this character to feel it, I couldn't imagine what it would be like for this other person to feel it. And I know, I feel like this book opened up doors for me that I wouldn't have otherwise had, and it allowed me to feel things that I would probably never experience in my life ever. But it planted a lot of seeds of compassion and love that I don't think I would have even otherwise had if I hadn't read this book. I actually do love this book because it's unapologetically real and raw, and I'm personally someone who can handle quite graphic themes in the ways in which Hanya wrote them. And so yeah, I know it's quite controversial for me to even like this book, and I didn't necessarily, I can't even say if I didn't enjoy reading it, but I also did. There's a certain character in this book called Harold, and he acts as a father figure to one of the main men in this book. And I'll talk about Harold all the he is such a cute, cuddly little teddy bear, and he's just such a little, he's just like a lovely old man. And my sister would jokingly say that Harold is like my book husband, and I resonate with that. But again, yeah, I don't. This was a moving book for me, and it was so compelling, and it hooked me in so many different ways. But despite that, I still don't recommend the book. Yeah, hot take, I like A Little Life. The next book that I have is A Thousand Pieces of You by Claudia Gray. I haven't seen this book really spoken about ever. I thought, let's read the blurb. As the daughter of two brilliant physicists, oh my goodness, I can't. Margaret. Okay, I'm gonna say Margaret. It could probably be wrong. As the daughter of two brilliant physicists, Margaret Kane grew up surrounded by wild scientific theories, always encouraged to imagine the improbable or even the impossible. But when her father is murdered, Margaret's life is turned upside down. All the evidence points to one person, Paul, her parents' handsome, enigmatic prodigy. Before the law can touch him, though, Paul uses Margaret's mother's latest invention, a device called the Firebird, which allows people to leap into alternate dimensions to escape. With the help of other physicist student Theo, Margaret chases Paul through various dimensions, determined to avenge her father. Her parents theorize that people who have met in one reality will be likely to meet in another. That key moments will happen over and over in different ways, but when Margaret leaps into each new world, she meets another version of Paul that has her doubting his guilt and questioning her heart. Before long, she realizes that what happened to her father may be more complex and more sinister than she ever dreamed. So, I read this book a long time ago now, when I was 15, I think, and I fell in love with the story. However, because I got this when I was thrifting, I actually didn't have the other two books, and I couldn't find them anywhere. I couldn't even find them online. And a couple of years ago, one of my friends told me that her sister had actually somehow had the second and the third book, not the first book, had the second and the third book, and she didn't want them anymore, so I was welcome to just take them and keep them. And I'm like, yes, I finally get to finish this series. And let me tell you, oh my goodness, the drama, the love, the passion, and the science, like traveling into alternate dimensions, is so cool. It's so interesting that I get the privilege to read about such interesting things. Yeah, I love this book. So I feel like the blurb kind of gave away a brief understanding of the story. But the book follows, I'm going to say Ma, and her father suddenly dies and is murdered, and she has no idea what happened. There's no context. It's just out of nowhere, and yeah, she has to chase Paul through different dimensions to capture him because she is convinced that Paul killed her father. But in the process, she obviously meets different versions of the people that she knows, and it can be quite confronting to meet different versions of the people that you know, because then I think in the process you kind of get confronted as to whether or not because then you're like, do I actually know the person that I thought I knew? If this other version is so different. There's even like a dimension that she goes to where the period is stuck like decades behind modern times, and so they're pretty much like living life as if you're in like probably the late 1800s, I would say, and like technologies are only really just being invented per se, and like they pretty much like, yeah, it's so interesting though, her having to go from living in a world that is so modern and so heavily reliant on technology to go somewhere where technology isn't even really like a term, not even really like a word. Like, yeah, it's so interesting. But this book really got me into sci-fi. I haven't really read very many sci-fi novels. I've read The Fifth Wave, which is here, and that's based on, it's not based, the movie is based on the book, and it's actually a series, and the same thing kind of happened with that series as to what happened with this one. But that was another sci-fi book that I read after 1,000 Pieces of You. But I haven't really read any other sci-fi stuff because I don't really have very many book friends, and I don't really get very many sci-fi recommendations, sci-fi book recommendations. So, but if you have any recommendations, let me know. I don't even know if that's even sci-fi. I'd say sci-fi, science fiction. I'd say so, yeah. The next book is Fourth Wing. Love Fourth Wing. A lot of people. Oh, I'm not gonna get into it. I don't know. Let's read the blurb. The blurb says, 20-year-old Violet Songirl was supposed to enter the scribe quadrant, living a quiet life among books and history. Now the commanding general, her tough as Talon's mother, has ordered Violet to join the hundreds of candidates striving to become the elite of the Naviri, dragon riders. But when you're smaller than everyone else and your body is brittle, death is only a heartbeat away, because dragons don't bond to fragile humans, they incinerate them. With fewer dragons willing to bond than candidates, most would kill Violet to better their own chances of success. The rest would kill her just for being her own mother's daughter, like Zaiden Ronson, the most powerful and ruthless ringleader in the Riders Quadrant. She'll need every edge her wits can give her just to see the next sunrise. Yet every day the war outside grows more deadly. The kingdom's protective wards are failing, and even worse, Violet begins to suspect leadership is hiding a terrible secret. Everyone of Pascat has an agenda to sleep, so sleep with one eye open, because once you enter, there's only two ways out: graduate or die. Now, when I just read that out loud, you can even tell by the blurb why a lot of people are kind of haters. Not only does it kind of sound like it's kind of given fanfic vibes, like small, brittle, petite girl has to like fight her way to the top, and like it's giving Divergent, and it kind of, like the story even kind of gives Divergent a little, but I like it. I like Divergent. I'm not against other stories kind of utilizing other aspects of other stories. I don't think there's anything really wrong with that, as long as you're not like stealing like the plot or something like that. In per se. But yeah, this is kind of a lot like Divergent, but just with dragons. But yeah, I love it. So, if you can already tell by the blurb, this book is about Violet. saying it, it just sounds like Divergent. You basically have to go up the ranks to earn your place, and in the process you get, if you are bonded with a dragon, that basically solidifies your place there, unless you die, of course, in the process of having to rank through the different levels, like physical and psychological tests. Oh, even like thinking about it, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's like Divergent. It's better. Like, it's not better than Divergent. It's better than you think. I think it does take a little bit for you to get into. But I think the series as a whole, like the first book is like Divergent, but then it kind of differs away from that in the other book, and then there's another book coming out January, I believe. So it's gonna be part of a trilogy. But yeah, I love dragons. So I love Fourth Wing, and a little bit of a spoiler, the fact that when you bond to the dragon, they can like speak to you in your mind, and the dragons actually have personality. It's so cool. So yeah, I think this is a really cool, fun story, and I loved reading it, and I would read it again. So it's part of my favourite. I think I'm going to turn up the gain just a bit. Okay. The volume's going to be like going up and down, up and down, up and down. Okay. Okay. I'm going to cringe looking back on this when I edit it. So Jurassic Park. So, before we go talking about the book, actually no way, we're gonna read the blurb. On a remote jungle island, genetic engineers have created a dinosaur game park. An astonishing technique for recovering and cloning dinosaur DNA has been discovered. Now one of mankind's most thrilling fantasies has come true, and the first dinosaurs that the Earth has seen in the time of man emerge. But there is a dark side to the fantasy, and after catastrophe destroys the park's defense systems, the scientists and tourists are left fighting for survival. Now, before we go talking about the book and what's my favourite, you might already have, if you're new to the channel, and you haven't watched any of my other videos, I believe the one video where I've done it at my desk, you can see my Jurassic Park poster in the background, so you could already tell that I liked Jurassic Park. I have loved Jurassic Park since I was 4. I can go into the movie deets if you guys want me to do, if you made it this far in the video, if you are interested in me doing my favourite movies, and I can talk about it then. So spoiler alert, Jurassic Park is like one of my favourite movies, if not my like all-time top tier favourite movies. So because of that, I actually have some, how do I like show this? I have dinosaur tattoos. There we go. So I have a blue over here. I have a T-Rex over here. So this style started with this. Someone pretty much like did a tracing and put it on me, and then I asked them to follow the same style with the other dinosaurs that I wanted. So I got a T-Rex. I have a Brachiosaurus there, and then I can't really show the other ones, but I have a Triceratops here and a Pterodactyl here. So I like dinosaurs a lot. That doesn't mean that I know everything about dinosaurs. I did when I was a kid. I had like all the dinosaur books, and I had like those little fossil, like wooden fossils that you like put together, and they like stood up. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but this is a bit embarrassing. I didn't actually know for majority of my childhood and teenage years that Jurassic Park was based off a book. Who would have thought? So I didn't. There's a fly on the iPad. So yeah, who would have thought? I did not certainly think that. So when someone at my church found out that I hadn't read the books, and he ended up finding out, I think he was even the one that told me that Jurassic Park was based on books. He's like, I'm getting you the books, so he gifted me the books, and so I read it instantly, and I'm like, oh my goodness, the book is so much better than the movie, and like the movie, I love the movie, it's like my favourite movie. So let me explain why. So I think this is brilliantly written. It is so cool and it's so sciencey, and I love that. Like when I was in high school and I was doing my biology classes, I was like living for it. Like I loved biology classes. I loved learning about like the human body and how things worked. And so this book kind of goes into like the sciencey stuff about like genetic engineering and stuff like that, and biotechnology. But InGen is the company that I believe Henry works at, and he's a scientist that does all like the biotech and takes like the dinosaur DNA out of like the mosquito and the tree sap, and he does all the sciencey stuff, and he creates the dinosaurs. And Henry works at InGen, I believe, and he they have Michael wrote so much about the company that you don't even hear about in the movie. Like you just get hints about it. There is so much more like about the company, about like how they designed the dinosaurs, why they did it. Like in the book there is like so many graphs, and like there's like even like a whole like section of a page that shows like genetic code with like the different bases and stuff, and it's really interesting. But like there's like a whole section that in the introduction that talks about the InGen incident, and it talks about how like they found the DNA and what they're doing with the DNA and stuff like that. And it's really interesting. In the whole book they mention InGen a bunch of times, but even going past that into the characters, I love the way that Ellie, Alan and Ian are depicted in the novel. They are so different in the novel than they were in the movie. Ellie really wasn't, but Alan and Ian were a bit different. Ian, even though in like the movie is so much like he talks a lot about like the extinction of humanity and like how everyone's gonna die because the dinosaurs were brought back to life. Alan in the movie is like kind of like a kid hater, like he doesn't like kids, and in the book he is almost quite the opposite. He actually kind of likes kids and likes hanging out around them, as in the movie he's kind of opposite, and I'm kind of interested why they changed his character in that way. But Ian is sort of like a main character in the book, and at the start, not of each chapter, but like more like each section. So every time something big sort of happens, there's like a new section, and it's not really a puzzle, but more like a mathematical equation or concept that you kind of are solving or piecing together as certain things happen, and Ian is the character that brings it to life. And so this is what I mean. And each section this has changed, and Ian has a quote, and it says, this is for the first one: at the earliest drawings of the fractal curve, few clues to the underlying mathematics concept of Ian bringing this to life as the character in the book, and the way that Michael did this. I think it's supposed to show how the more complex you make such dangerous things, the more that they are then so hard to dissect and unfold and even erase. And I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't read this in a while and I do want to read it again. Like, this is making me want to read it again. But yeah, it goes into so much more science stuff and it's so interesting. But yeah, like even in the second chapter after the introduction, there is like a chapter called, there's a prologue and it's called The Bite of the Raptor, and at the end of the chapter prologue, it literally has the definition of raptor right there, and like, I don't know if you saw it right there, and I think that's quite funny, and it's pretty interesting. Bird of prey. But I don't know, maybe I can find a graph or something. Like a thing that there's, maybe I can find the genetic code. Like they have that. Like you're literally, it's like as if you're there, pretty much. And I think that is so cool. The way that they wrote that, Michael wrote it. Oh, you can see the magic word. Okay, I can't seem to find the DNA stuff, but it's really cool. And I love this book. It is not only nostalgic, but it's about dinosaurs, and I love dinosaurs, but for some reason this book, the way it was written, what it's about, I am so captivated by it and I can't put it down. So I think I'm going to pick this book back up again. And I also have The Lost World, but if I'm being honest, I don't even think I finished that. I think I read them like side by side, and then Lost World was so different from Jurassic Park, obviously, and I'm like, what the heck? And I'm pretty sure it's based off The Lost World. The Lost World movie is based off that book, and so I wasn't as in love with the movie, and so I think it could put me off from the book. But yeah, Jurassic Park, highly recommend. It's so cool, so cool. Okay, so, oh my goodness, why did I breathe like that? Okay, so now we're down to the last three. Yeah, the last three. So, Throne of Glass. Throne of Glass. Throne of Glass. Let's read the blurb. In the dark, filthy soul mines of Evandur, an 18-year-old girl is serving a life sentence. She is a trained assassin, the best of her kind. But she made a fatal mistake. She got caught. Young Captain Westfall offers her a deal. Her freedom in return for one huge sacrifice. Selena must represent the prince in a to-the-death tournament, fighting the most gifted thieves and assassins in the land. Live or die, Selena will be free. Win or lose, she is about to discover her true identity, but will her assassin's heart be melted? there's so much magic and fae and love, and it's just so cool. I love it. So I read this. I read Throne of Glass before I read ACOTAR, but this one, I feel like ACOTAR's more like, definitely a little bit more sophisticated. This one, I feel like it could, in a way that this one, like a younger audience could read it. Not like a younger audience, but like a younger audience in comparison to like ACOTAR could read it. But I still like would enjoy it now. I think, yeah, definitely it's on my favourites list. Yeah, it's so cool. Like, and as the story progresses, you're like, oh, so this book, Throne of Glass, this isn't my favourite in the series. Heir of Fire is, and if you know, you know. But this book in particular is about a girl called Selena who is a trained assassin since she was very young, and she is taken out of her prison life sentence to represent the prince in a tournament at the palace, and she has to fight against all these like other assassins and thieves and murderers and stuff like that, and all these like other people, and it's like a competition almost, and she has to like kill them all. But because she's been in like prison for so long, she has to like train herself again and become like strong again because she's lost all her muscle, and she ends up getting to know the people at the palace and the prince and stuff, and this big plot twist happens, and then the tournament isn't really even like the plot anymore. So it's really cool. And who would have thought I liked reading about assassins? Really cool. And I'm always here for a good love story, and this series definitely gives you one. One too many. Is that even the right phrasing? Lots more than one. What the heck? I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. The next book is Divergent. If I like Fourth Wing, I like Divergent. So I love the movie. I feel like I've really only liked the first movie, and really most of us only really watched the movie for Theo James, if we're being honest. Here. But I read the book when I was 15, and it's so much better than the movie. There's so much more. The only issue I have is the fact that as much as like I was looking for Theo James in the book, and Tobias is not really a Theo James, and so that was a little bit disappointing. And even like some of the story of like how Triss is ranked and stuff like that is a lot different. Like, as far as I believe in the book, she's like kind and not really, like she's like weak for a moment, and then suddenly she's just really strong and powerful, and like she's like at the top rank with like Peter, and in the movie she like has to kind of earn her place there, and even then she's kind of like knocked out, and then even still stays in, and it's like, okay, what the heck? And I get it makes more sense in the movie, and to be honest I kind of wish that it was kind of done in the book, but it's fine either way. Yeah, great writing, great stuff. Oh my goodness, let's read the blurb. I forgot to do that. 16-year-old Triss is forced to make a terrible choice in a divided society where everyone must conform. Triss does not fit, so she ventures out alone, determined to discover where she truly belongs. Shocked by her brutal new life, Triss can trust no one, and yet she is drawn to a boy who seems to both threaten and protect her. The hardest choice lies ahead. Wow, that really gives nothing into the book whatsoever, if I'm being honest. I like the fact that this really touches on the fact that society can really be dangerous is kind of predictable, but I don't really care about predictable stuff. I'm kind of dumb, so even really predictable stuff, I don't get it. And then it like happens, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even like think that was gonna happen. Like the really obvious enemies to lovers stuff, I'm like, oh, okay, didn't see that coming, and it was very obvious it was gonna happen. I'm that type of person. I have not only the mind, the brain, the memory of a goldfish, but I'm also very much a Joey. Friends reference there. It takes me a very long time to realize things and get stuff. So, love the book. I love the movie, and the book is better than the movie. So, it's part of my favorites. And this isn't really a nostalgic book for me because I did read it when I was a little bit in my older teenage years. But it's still like a great read. It's sort of like a comfort read, and it's so interesting when you read like stories that you originally watched as a movie, and then you read the story in the book, and it's like different, and it's like, what the heck? It's almost like a whole new story in itself. And I kind of got that with Divergent. There are so many different things in Divergent in the book than there is in the movie. Okay, so this might look a little different because I'm now on my phone because my iPad ran out of storage and I can't really fix it, so I'm on my phone. And I don't really film on my phone much because the battery sucks, and the battery like drains so quickly, and the storage in here sucks as well. But Divergent is great. Love Divergent. We have one more book, so let's quickly get through this. So I'll say that this book, Stay by Ali Larkin, is like my top comfort book. Like pretty much like the book that anytime I don't know what I want to read, I just read this. And it's because it's just such a cozy book, and the story is just so lovey-dovey, and I'm hopeless romantic. Like, it's about a dog and love. Like, hello, who wouldn't like it? So, does this, oh my goodness, so the jacket doesn't actually, okay, there, I'm like, where's the blurb? Okay, so, it says, Savannah Van Leon has been in love with Peter Clark ever since she literally fell head over heels in front of him on the first day of college. Now, 6 years later, instead of standing across from him at the altar, Van is standing behind her best friend Janie as maid of honor, trying to mask her heartache and guilt, as Janie marries the only man she's ever loved. Before Van's mother died, she told Van never to let Peter go, but as the couple exchanges vows, Van wonders if a fairy tale ending will ever come true. After the wedding, Van drowns her sorrows in Kool-Aid vodka cocktails and reruns of Rin Tin Tin, and does what any heartbroken woman in her situation would do. She impulsively buys a German Shepherd over the internet, but the pocket-sized puppy Van is expecting turns out to be a clumsy 100-pound beast who only responds to commands in Slovak. Van is at the end of her rope until she realizes that this quirky giant may be the only living thing who will always be loyal to her no matter what. Van affectionately names her dog Joe, and together they work to mend the pieces of Van's shattered heart. And it certainly doesn't hurt that Joe's vet is a rugged sweetheart with floppy blonde hair and a winning smile. But when the newlyweds return from their honeymoon, Van is forced to decide just how much she's willing to sacrifice in order to have everything she ever wanted, proving that sometimes life needs a little more complex. To get more complicated before it can get better. Now, this story is so good. So, if you couldn't already tell by the really long blurb, best friend in college, and essentially she loses him. And in terms of as a potential future partner, and he ends up falling in love with her best friend, who she grew up with as a child, and he ends up getting really drunk and buying a dog online, and then that dog somehow ends up bringing her the healing that she needed, and helps her get over this man, and she ends up finding people in her life that are honestly so much better for her than she had before. But this book, even though the story is a little bit like, oh my goodness, like it's a little bit more complex and like a little romance story, it really isn't. It's just such a comforting story to have, because it's like the blurb said, like, sometimes things get complex before they get better, and getting this giant fluffy dog, Joe, made her life so incredibly complex, and there were so many issues she had, and yet in the end she ended up finding everything that she didn't know she needed. Everything she didn't know she needed, yeah. She didn't get everything she wanted, but she got everything she needed, and that turned out to be everything that she wanted. And it's a cute little love story, and the dog is just adorable. He's so cute. So anytime I am in a bad mood, I read this book. Anytime I don't know what to read, I read this book. Anytime I need to pick me up, I read this book. I'm always reading this book. I have it with me everywhere. It is just like, Joe is like, oh, he's such a vibe, and for a dog, it is so funny. I can't. And I think because I lost my own dog, like my own childhood dog, when I was so young, I think Joe kind of reminds me of what it's like having a dog, and it's quite comforting and nostalgic in its own way. But yeah, I think I put this at the bottom of my list because I don't think really anyone would know it, but also because I would say that this is like at the top of the list. I'd say this, and then like Jurassic Park, to be honest. I'm starting to get the hiccups. Yeah, it's so cool. I saw a quote in the jacket, and I might read it out loud. It's from the book, and it says, "I wanted to have someone on my team, even if that someone was only a dog. I wanted that kind of constant companionship and intense loyalty, and it's not like my dog was going to be bigger than a child actor when he showed up. I was getting a tiny puppy. I could handle that." And I think it goes to show that when you're searching for companionship in one person, you kind of forget about all the people and things that are around you that will give you something even better than what you think you could get out of the person that you're like searching, looking for it and for. And even like, I think this even helped me when I fell out with my friends when I left high school a while ago. This helped me to even like move on. This book kind